What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to JohnnyKpicks. And in this video, I'm gonna go over my full card, picks and predictions for UFC 274, Oliveira versus Gaethje. First things first, if you can hit that like button for me and make friends with that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on any of my new videos or live streams. So UFC Vegas 53 was last night, and unfortunately I wasn't able to watch about 90% of the fights live. And the one fight I did get to catch was the Vera Font fight, the whole thing, and man, it was a great fight to watch. But overall, I ended up going 7-4 on my picks, and I ended up winning plus 2.74 units profit. So if you're keeping track like I am, that's 4 winning fight cards in a row. And we're going to just keep the momentum rolling right into UFC 274 with the bets. And I already have a few locked in, but I do think this card will be good for betting. So like I said, the only fight I did get to see was the Font versus Vera fight, and man, it was a really good one. And all I can say is Vera is a monster. He took so many punches from Font early on and even throughout the whole fight, but it didn't even look like a scratch was on his face. And throughout the fight, he landed the more impactful shots, the more powerful shots. He ended up knocking down Font at least 3 times in 3 different rounds. And I really thought he was going to be able to get the finish in the 4th or maybe 5th round, but I don't think he wanted to, really. I think he knew he could have, but I think he just wanted to show everybody that he can go 5 rounds, and he's a good striker, and he's a tough, durable guy, and honestly, like, he looks like he could be a potential champion. And alright, for the controversy of the night that I didn't get to watch live, but I ended up going back to watch it because everybody on Twitter was going crazy about it, the Arlovski-Collier fight. And I gotta say, I did have a bet on Arlovski to win by decision, and it was a little dicey because I think Collier did end up winning 2 out of the 3 rounds, but this is what the UFC judging is all about. There's always going to be one judge that sees it 30-27 the opposite way, and then the other 2 judges is just going to be a toss-up because you have no idea how they look at fights, how they judge fights, even though that there are guidelines on how to score fights. But again, I can go on and on about judging in the UFC, and it's just getting out of control again. And also, it was good to see that Elkins won. He's a local guy, and he grew up around where I live now, and I always root for him. He's a veteran of the sport. He's a grinder. He's a warrior, whatever you want to say, and I'm just glad he won that one. But alright guys, so let's get to my picks and predictions for UFC 274. The first fight we have is Andre Fialho versus Cameron VanCamp. Fialho is 15-4, 28 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. And VanCamp is 15-5-1, 29 years old, 6'2", and I'm not sure his reach. So I think this fight was just recently added, and I'm going to go with Fialho to win this one. So VanCamp is making his UFC debut, and Fialho actually just fought like 1 or 2 weeks ago. But without a doubt, Fialho is going to have the striking advantage. He's going to have the power advantage. And VanCamp is more of a grappler. He does have a lot of submissions on his resume. But I just think Fialho is too tough for him. I think he's going to give VanCamp some issues on the feet. And I do think there's going to be an early KO here. So with my pick, I'm going to say Fialho wins this one by knockout. Next fight we have is Newson versus Fernie Garcia. Newson is 9-3, 33 years old, 5'5", with a 67.5-inch reach. And Garcia is 10-1, 30 years old, 5'7", with a 68-inch reach. So with my pick here, I'm going to pick Garcia to win. So Garcia is making his UFC debut as well. And he looked pretty good on a Dana White Contender Series win. He has really good boxing, and he does have some wrestling that he can use, but we haven't seen too much of that yet. And Newson is more of a grappler, but he does have power in his hands. But I will say he's not as technical of a striker as Garcia is. And the way I see this fight playing out is if Garcia can use his range and keep the fight on the feet, and if he does want to go for a couple takedowns here and there, I think he can get them fairly easy. But I like Garcia in this matchup. I think he'll be able to outstrike Newson, and he just has to worry about that early KO power from Newson. So with my pick, I'm going to say Garcia wins this one by decision. Moving on up the card, we have Lupita Godinez versus Ariane Carnelossi. Godinez is 7-2, 28 years old, 5'2", with a 61-inch reach. And Carnelossi is 14-2, 29 years old, 5'2", with a 61.5-inch reach. Alright, so this is the first fight that I'm really interested to see. And I do think this fight's going to be a lot closer than everyone thinks it might be. but I'm gonna go ahead and say that Loopy gets the job done. So Godinez is more of a wrestler, but she does have good striking and good takedowns. And normally she kind of wants to be the bully in the fight. She does like to go for the takedowns a lot, and she does have really good submissions once she gets you down there. And Carnelossi is kind of the same thing. She's really strong, she's really good striking and power in her hands, and she can take you down, but she does also like to be the bully a little bit. So for me, this one's kind of a tough one to predict, but I think what it comes down to is which fighter is going to implement their game plan first. And if Loopy can get the takedowns early, I think she's going to have success throughout the whole fight. But if this fight does stay standing, I may give Carnelossi the slight edge, but Loopy is pretty good at striking, like I said. But with my pick, I'm going to say Godinez wins this one by a very close decision. Next fight we have is Clayton Rodrigues versus CJ Vergara. Rodrigues is 7-1, 26 years old, 5'6" with a 67-inch reach. And Vergara is 9-3-1, 30 years old, 5'6" with a 69.5-inch reach. So in this fight, I'm going to go with Rodrigues to win this one. So Rodrigues is making his UFC debut, and he looked really good in his Dana White Contender Series win. He has really good striking. I really like his kicks. He does do a lot of head kicks and low kicks, and he always likes to push forward and stay in his opponent's face. And Vergara does have good striking as well, and he does have good power. But I just think that Rodrigues is the more well-rounded fighter. I don't see this fight going to the mat. I do think it's going to be a striker versus striker showdown. But if it does, I do like Rodrigues as well. He does have pretty good grappling. And I don't think it would be a bad idea for Rodrigues to get this fight to the mat maybe a couple times, because it's going to be a close fight on the feet, but I do like Rodrigues more than Vergara. And again, I do think it's going to go to the judges' scorecards. So with my pick, I'm going to say Rodrigues wins this one by decision. Next fight we have is Tracy Cortez versus Melissa Gatto. Cortez is 9-1, 28 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. And Gatto is 8-0-2, 26 years old, 5'5" with a 69-inch reach. So this is going to be another good fight, and I've been going back and forth with this one, but I ended up saying that Cortez is going to win this fight. So this is going to be a classic wrestler versus grappler showdown here. And Cortez is going to be the wrestler here. She's very good at taking her opponents down and doing ground and pound. But I will say, if it's on the feet, her striking is just okay. It's not the greatest. And with Gatto, she's a very good grappler with very good submissions off her back. And her striking is kind of okay as well. So I do think this fight's mainly going to play out on the mat, and it all depends on if Cortez can stay safe on top control, because like I said, Gatto's really good at getting submissions on her back. So it wouldn't surprise me if Gatto gets like an armbar or some kind of triangle, but I do think Cortez's wrestling is that good. I think she can play it safe for 3 rounds and just stay in top control for the majority of the fight. So with my pick, I'm going to say Cortez wins this one by decision. Next fight we have is Francisco Trinaldo versus Danny Roberts. Trinaldo is 27-8, 43 years old, 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. And Roberts is 18-5, 34 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. So here we go. Here is the return of Danny Roberts. And who can forget that Roberts beat Amib in his last fight? Not me, because he totally didn't win that fight. That was one of the top 2 robberies of 2021. But I don't want to get into that because I can talk about that forever. But I'm going to go with the old guy, and I'm going to say Trinaldo wins this one. So Trinaldo is going to be the smaller guy, but he still has pretty good striking and power in his hands. And also, if he does want to use some of his wrestling and grappling, he can do that as well. And with Roberts, he's going to be probably the better striker in this matchup, the more technical striker. But the red flag for me, is that he does tend to fade as the fight goes on. And if Trinaldo can use some of his wrestling, maybe even get him up against the cage and just grind on him a little bit, his cardio is going to fade real fast. And the way I see this fight playing out is Trinaldo, he might test the waters in the striking department early on, but I do see him trying to go for takedowns at least, because Roberts' takedown defense is not that good at all at 56%. And I don't see a finish happening here, so with my pick, I'm going to say Trinaldo grinds out a 29-28 decision. Next fight we have is Blagoy Ivanov versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Ivanov is 18-4, 35 years old, 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. And de Lima is 19-7-1, 36 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Alright, so in this fight, I'm going to take a shot here, and I'm going to say de Lima wins this one. So both guys have good striking, but I will give the power advantage to De Lima. Also with De Lima, he has really good kicks for a heavyweight, and his striking defense isn't that bad either. Both guys can wrestle, but I will give Ivanov the edge here. But as usual heavyweight fights go, I do see this fight playing out mainly on the feet, but I will be a little worried if Ivanov does get De Lima on his back, because he's not good at all once he's on his back. Also, something to note here too is this is Ivanov's first fight in over 2 years, so he's going to be a little rusty, and De Lima's been a little bit more active than that, and he has looked good in his last couple fights. So with my pick, I'm going to say somehow this fight does go the distance, and De Lima wins a 29-28 decision. Next fight we have is Brandon Royval versus Matt Schnell. Royval is 13-6, 29 years old, 5'9", with a 70.5-inch reach. And Schnell is 15-6, 32 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach. So in this matchup, I'm going to go with Royval to win. So right off the bat, something to note, Schnell is moving down from bantamweight in this fight, and that's always a little red flag for me. But both guys are good strikers. I will give Royval the slight edge because he's a little bit more unorthodox with his striking. He likes to use elbows and kicks and knees. And Royval does have good grappling, but he doesn't really go for takedowns, so if he is on his back, that's when he does his submissions usually, or if he gets a rear naked choke. And Schnell is a good grappler himself. He does have some good submissions, but I just think Royval's submissions are a little bit more slick. He's a little bit quicker in the transitions on the ground. And the way I see this fight playing out is I do think it's going to be more of a striking match here. It might get to the mat once or twice, but I do see Royval getting the win here, probably by a weird submission somehow. So with my pick, I'm going to say Royval wins by submission. Next fight we have is Macy Chiasson versus Norma Dumont. Chiasson is 7-2, 30 years old, 5'11", with a 72-inch reach. And Dumont is 7-1, 31 years old, 5'7", with a 67-inch reach. So this is going to be a fun matchup to watch. And with my pick, I'm going to say Dumont wins. So both fighters are mainly going to be striking here. Chiasson will have the height and reach advantage, but I do think Dumont is going to be the quicker fighter. She's going to be able to get in the inside when she wants. And if Dumont does want to use some of her wrestling, I do think she'll be able to get Chiasson down because her takedown defense is only 64%. And another thing to note, Chiasson's striking defense is only 45% compared to Dumont's 67%. So the way I see this fight playing out is Macy might look good in the first round, but as the fight goes on, I do think Dumont will be able to mix in a couple takedowns, outstrike Macy, and maybe even get a late finish. But with my pick, I'm going to say Dumont wins this one by a 29-28 decision. Moving on up the card, we have Randy Brown versus Khaos Williams. Brown is 14-4, 31 years old, 6'3", with a 78-inch reach. And Khaos is 13-2, 28 years old, 6 foot, with a 77-inch reach. So this is another fight that I'm really looking forward to. And I've thought about this one for a little bit, but I ended up going with Khaos Williams to win. So both of these guys are mainly strikers, and they're both really good. Brown is probably going to have the more technical striking, but Khaos Williams does have that natural power in his hands. Brown also does have good grappling and submissions, but I don't see this fight going to the mat because Khaos does have pretty good takedown defense. And another thing I really like about Khaos, he does have really good low leg kicks, which will pay dividends throughout the fight. But honestly, I just can't look past Khaos's power here. He can end the fight in under 30 seconds, or he can end the fight in the third round. It just takes one shot. So with my pick, I'm going to say Khaos Williams does find Randy Brown's chin at one point and gets the knockout. Next fight we have is Donald Cerrone versus Joe Lauzon. Cerrone is 36-16, 39 years old, 6'1", with a 73-inch reach. And Lauzon is 28-15, 37 years old, 5'10", with a 71-inch reach. Alright, so this is kind of a weird fight to schedule at this point in their careers. And this probably should be both their retirement fights. But I'm going to ever so slightly lean in favor of Donald Cerrone to win this one. I know Cerrone hasn't looked good in his last 5 or 6 fights, but I do think he's the more well-rounded fighter. And he has been the more active fighter. He has really good striking and really good grappling. And with Lauzon, he has good grappling as well, but his striking isn't as good as Donald Cerrone's. And a little red flag for me though, is Lauzon hasn't fought in over 2 years, and he's 37 years old, and I just don't know how much cardio he's going to have or how he's going to look. And another thing too, he's not going to be much of a KO threat, so I do think Cerrone is going to be able to last a little bit longer at least than he did in those last few fights. But the way I see this fight playing out is I do think Cerrone will be able to stuff the majority of the takedowns, and I think he'll be able to outstrike Lauzon throughout the fight, and I do see it going to the judges' scorecard. So with my pick, I'm going to say Cerrone wins this one by decision. Next fight we have is Ovince St. Preux versus Shogun Rua. St. Preux is 25-16, 39 years old, 6'3", with an 80-inch reach. And Rua is 27-12-1, 40 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach. Alright, so weird fight number 2, back to back. And again, this probably should be both of their retirement fights after this one. But I'm going to ever so slightly pick OSP to win this one. So both guys have pretty good striking, but I will give OSP the technical and speed advantage here. Rua does have pretty good wrestling that he can use, but OSP does have good grappling and good submissions, so I'm not 100% sure if that's what he wants to do. And for me, this one's going to be hard to predict, but I do see this fight playing out mainly on the feet. And as the fight goes on, I think both fighters will slow down, but I think OSP will wrap up some kind of crazy submission like he normally does later in the fight and get the win here. So with my pick, I'm going to say OSP gets the submission maybe in the second or third round. Moving on up the card, we have Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. Chandler is 22-7, 36 years old, 5'8", with a 71.5-inch reach. And Ferguson is 25-6, 38 years old, 5'11", with a 76-inch reach. Alright, so the first of 3 that I am super pumped for, and with my pick, I'm going to say Chandler gets the job done. So both guys are super dangerous in their own right, but for me, I just think Chandler's going to be the more explosive fighter. I think he's going to have the more power. And I know Ferguson is getting up there in age, but he's still a warrior. He has really good cardio, and he does have good elbows and submissions, so you can never count him out. But the way I see this fight playing out is I don't think it's going to go to the mat unless Chandler wants to get a takedown. And I can totally see it playing out kind of like the Gaethje-Chandler fight, where it's just going to be a slugfest for 3 rounds. It's going to be entertaining. Both guys are probably going to be bloody, but I just think that Chandler's going to land the more impactful strikes. He's going to be able to maybe even drop Ferguson once or twice. So with my pick, I'm going to say in this bloody war, Chandler's going to win a very close decision. Alright, co-main event time here. We have Thug Rose versus Carla Esparza. Rose is 11-4, 29 years old, 5'5", with a 65-inch reach. And Esparza is 18-6, 34 years old, 5'1", with a 63-inch reach. Alright, so fight number 2 that I'm super pumped for. And actually, I'm a big Thug Rose fan, and I think this fight's going to be a little bit closer than some people think. But with my pick, I'm going to say Thug Rose does get the job done. So obviously, Rose is going to have the clear advantage in the striking department, and Esparza is going to be the better wrestler. And make no mistake about it, that's what Esparza wants to do. She wants to wrestle. She wants to get this fight to the mat, because that's basically all she does. She has okay striking, but if this fight plays out in the feet, it's going to be Thug Rose all day. And if Esparza is able to get Thug Rose on her back, she does have really good BJJ that she can get submissions down there. And the way I see this fight playing out is I can see Esparza having some success early on with her takedowns, but as the fight goes on, I do think Rose will be able to take over because Esparza's never been past the 3rd round. She's been in a couple 5-round fights, but they've never gone past the 3rd round. And it'll be interesting to see if her cardio can hold up for all 5 rounds and still go for those takedowns. But I just think Rose is going to be too much for Esparza, especially as the fight goes on, like I said. So with my pick, I'm going to say Thug Rose wins this fight, keeps her belt by a close 49-47 decision. Alright, main event time here. We have Charlie Olives versus Justin Gaethje. Oliveira is 32-8, 32 years old, 5'10", with a 74-inch reach. And Gaethje is 23-3, 33 years old, 5'11", with a 70-inch reach. Okay, so fight 3 of 3 that I'm super pumped for, and I already locked in my bet about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and my pick here is going to be Charles Olives to win. So as we all know, Oliveira does have the better grappling in this matchup, and he does have really good technical striking, and Gaethje's striking is very good as well. He does have some wrestling that he can use, but again, we still really haven't seen him wrestle in the UFC, so I don't think he's going to use any of that. And I know Gaethje is a warrior, he's super durable, but I just see this fight playing out exactly like the Dustin Poirier and Charles Oliveira fight. Gaethje might have success early in the striking in the first round, but as the fight goes on, I think Charlie Olives is going to be able to somehow either get the fight to the mat and get a submission, or take his back just like he did against Poirier and get the rear naked choke here. So with my pick, I'm going to say Oliveira wins by submission, maybe in the second or third round. Alright guys, so those are my picks and predictions for UFC 274. Thank you everybody for watching, and on your way out, please go ahead and hit that like button for me. I hope everybody enjoys the fights this weekend, and until next time, happy fight night!